Okay, everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the first Retina Australia webinar 2021. My name is Sally Turnbull. I'm the Administrative Officer for Retina Australia and I'll be the facilitator of this webinar today. So now I would like to introduce our two speakers for today, Damian McMorrow and Jim Pipczak from Vision Australia. Damian graduated with a Bachelor of Information Technology from Griffith University and has spent over 24 years in the IT industry in a variety of roles, from running his own adaptive technology business through to managing technical and service delivery teams across the education sector. During this time, he has relied upon adaptive technology and equipment to help overcome a wide range of barriers. He then brought his experience and passion for technology to Vision Australia, previously as an access technology specialist, where he assisted clients in the use of technology for work, education, travel and leisure, and currently as National Access Technology Manager, leading Vision Australia's Access Technology Service. Jim Pipczak has been with Vision Australia for over 26 years in a variety of roles, including setting up Vision Australia Equipment Solutions, now known as Vision Store, as well as assisting clients through the Vision Australia Assistive Technology Help Desk. Jim now works as an Access Technology Service Development Lead, utilising his extensive knowledge of assistive technology to support Vision Australia staff in the delivery of AT services to clients. As both a user and an expert in the field of assistive technology, Jim has seen many changes and advancements in the field during his career. So I'll hand over to Jim and Damian now, and I hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Damian McMorrow is my name. As Sally said in the introduction, I'm the National Access Technology Manager for Vision Australia. To tell you a little bit about me, first of all, just for the purposes of background. I was blind from birth. I have Leber's congenital amaurosis, and a dose of keratoconus thrown in just for variety and interest. Most of my working life has been spent in the IT industry, mostly around the tertiary education sector. And one of the jobs that I held prior to joining Vision Australia was at Central Queensland University in Rockhampton as IT service delivery manager, which meant I was responsible for the IT help desk, but also video conferencing and audio visual support. Now, when I took that role on, everyone said, whose bright idea was it to put the blind guy in charge of video conferences? But my point in mentioning that was that because of what technology has been able to do, I was able to undertake a role like that and do it successfully for a number of years. And that is part of where my passion for assistive tech comes from in terms of the employment opportunities, study opportunities, education opportunities, and just access to information that it provides. And we live in an era where we have unprecedented access to information. 20 or 30 years ago, if you had a total vision impairment, as I do, your career opportunities were limited more or less to switchboard operator, massage therapist, or piano tuner. Whereas now, because of technology, we have people working in law, international business, IT, education, a whole range of different fields. So that's really, I guess, why it's an area that personally I'm quite passionate about in terms of what it can do for people. Jim, would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I started with the RVRB, now Vision Australia, over 26 years ago, and a little bit like Damian, I used to work for Vic Roads as that switchboard operator that Damian was talking about. They threw a computer in front of me and got it to talk, and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. And I started picking up books and reading everything I can, and it all started to make sense. So in my spare time, I ended up starting a company installing that same speech software to other government departments. And that's where it led to me starting with Vision Australia. I was one of the first access technology specialists who was vision impaired. And so I used to go and do all the sorts of things that I needed done for other people. So the technology over the last 26 years, as you can imagine, has come an enormous way. And I actually heard someone say not long ago, this is probably the best time ever to have a vision impairment because of the technology. Part of my job is to find a solution for other people with a vision impairment, and it's one of the things that I get the most pleasure out of, I must admit, to come up with a solution for someone that for some people can be super simple, and for others it can be a lot more complicated. But sometimes you can just change a person's life or just make frustrations go away, and that's what I really love doing.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a passion that we share. Thanks, Jim. Just to tell you a little about Vision Australia for those that don't know us. We are a leading national provider of services to the blind and low vision community. And our aim is to help them to achieve the possibilities that they choose in life. We support more than 25,500 people around the country. We have centres in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, the ACT, and we provide outreach services into the Northern Territory and Tasmania. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we are also a major participant in the international blindness community as well. In terms of what we'd like to talk to you about today, I thought that we would talk through some different types of technology that is out there. Some of it you may be familiar with, some of it you may not. Unfortunately, because of the time constraints we've got, we can only really scratch the surface. There are so many variants and options out there. So what we're going to try to do today is to cover broadly the different types of technologies that are out there. Some of them are free tools that are built into devices you may already have, and some of them are specialized devices. So we'll talk about dedicated sort of print magnifiers. We'll talk about how to magnify or get speech access for your phone and likewise for your computer. We'll talk about wearable technologies. We'll talk about some of the specialized software that you can access and how that compares to some of the built-in tools. We'll also talk a little about the funding options that exist to help you access some of this technology and how that works, what a technology assessment would look like, and how to get more information and help if it's something that you would like to investigate further. So that's loosely the agenda for the next half to 3/4 of an hour, and there will be plenty of time for you to ask questions at the end as well. So Jim, do you want to start us off by talking a little about print magnifiers?
No worries. When it comes to what we refer to print magnifiers, some people call them video magnifiers or CCTVs. There are a huge range of different video magnifiers, handheld ones and desktop ones. The handheld or the portable magnifiers go from 3.5 inches up to 12 inches. They're all really different depending on what your needs are. The 3.5-inch version, for instance, you wouldn't want to read a book with it, or a large document, but it could be really handy for going out shopping and looking at those price tags and items like that. So the different sizes go 4 inches, 6, 7 inches, 8 inches, up to 12. The 12-inch units generally would sit on top of a book or on top of a document. They all have the option of reversing the screen. So it might be, for instance, some people have glare problems, so that you might reverse the screen so it's a black background with white writing. Other people can see certain colors better than others, so you might have yellow, for instance, on a black background, or blue on a black background. Whenever you use those those reverse colors, they also make the text quite crisp. So if you're reading a newspaper, for instance, you might realize that the newspaper text is really quite poor. But if you use the enhanced mode, it actually makes the text much crisper and much easier to see. Some of those units, in fact, majority of those units, you can also connect them to a large TV, so that if you've got a little portable unit, you can actually use your TV set as a really big screen when you're reading things. Some of the units can be connected to a computer and have other functions like OCR or optical character recognition. So if you, for instance, have problems reading for a long period of time and you get some eye strain, using the OCR function allows the device to scan and then read it back to you. Next slide, Damo. Thank you. Desktop magnifiers as well. Of course, you've got all the portable ones, but then you have the larger units that might sit on a desktop. They generally range from 16 inches up to 24 inches. There is a 28-inch version. Particular one on the screen now has got a camera that sits above the monitor. So it points down onto the table. Anything you put under it will be enlarged on the screen. Nice thing about this particular unit, you can actually turn the camera into the distance and look into the distance. So you could move this one around the house, or if you had it in the kitchen, for instance, you could be reading a magazine, a book, recipes, for instance. And then you can point the camera out the window to see what's happening in the backyard. See, what tree the dog's trying to destroy all of a sudden, and zoom in to them. But you could also turn the camera to yourself and use it like a mirror as well. Once again, there's different versions of the desktop, and they once again do the same sort of thing where you can have background and foreground colors. Some will OCR, so they'll scan as well and read it to you. You can actually, on some units, have devices that are run by a tablet. So you've got the Android operating system in the background. So not only will they magnify, but they'll have other apps on there as well that you can get to. Some units, like the one on the screen now, you can also connect a camera to it. So this is a 12-inch tablet on its own stand. It's got a camera connected to it, so you can look into the distance. Particularly useful. You can fold this down and take it away with you if you've got a holiday home, or you're going somewhere on holidays for a while, which is a bit difficult to do at the moment, but getting better. The camera's quite useful in a classroom situation where you need to look at the whiteboard, so that you can zoom in on the whiteboard. You could also then take a snapshot of whatever's on the whiteboard as well. Ocam, Damo.
Yeah, so in the last couple of years, we've started to see a number of wearable devices. So one example of that is a device called the Ocam. It's a small device which attaches to a regular set of spectacles, and it attaches via magnets, or you can have it on a lanyard around your neck. And this device allows you to, well, it does a number of things. It can take a picture of and then speak out text. And you can either read the whole page, or you can sort of point to blocks of text. So if you were reading a newspaper, for example, or a magazine article, and you can see that there's a picture there and you want to know what the caption says underneath it, you can do a hand gesture in front of the camera and it will just speak out the piece of text that you're pointing to. It will also do things like face recognition and currency recognition. So you can take a picture of someone, and anytime that person comes into view on the camera, it will announce the name that you've recorded for that person. So that's an example of wearable technology and where it's going. At the present point in time, that particular device, its only limitation really, or its most significant limitation rather, is that you can't save text to have it read back later. So if you've read a piece of mail and you've put it aside, if you want to read it again, you've got to hold it up in front of the camera and take a snapshot of it. Another example of wearable technology is a service called Aira. And there are a few of these now. And essentially what they do is they use the camera in your phone, and they connect you to a trained human agent. So the idea is that the person at the other end of the call, it's like a video call, the person at the other end can interpret whatever the camera can see. So to give you an example of that, if I'm I'm based in Brisbane, but if I was to travel to Melbourne Airport, I could, when I stepped off the plane, call Aira and say, hey, I'm at Melbourne domestic, gate 23, terminal 4, or whatever it is. I need to find my luggage, which you've got a photo of in my profile, and then I need assistance to get out to an Uber or a taxi. And they can overlay the video feed from my camera over the top of a map of the terminal, and they can guide me to find the lifts, go down in the lifts, find the luggage carousel, tell me when my luggage is coming past. I can grab that, and then they can direct me out to a taxi or an Uber, and even call the Uber for me and make sure that I get in the right car. So Aira stands for Artificial Intelligent Remote Assistance. And it's in recent years become quite a game changer in many ways in terms of the possibilities that opens up. Moving on now to phones, and we're quite lucky these days in that a lot of almost all smartphones that you can buy now have some form of built-in screen magnification. So in the case of the Apple devices, it's a feature called Zoom, and it can be accessed under settings and then under accessibility options. And there are options to enlarge the text or enlarge a portion of the text. You can also do the reverse colors type mode that Jim was talking about before, so that you swap the background and the foreground color on the screen to make text easier to see. And there's a range of other options there for sort of bold fonts and those kinds of things to make the device easier to read. And that's built into the device. There's no extra software required. Android does have some good magnification options as well. The only caveat that I would say there is that the options that are available kind of depends a little more on what version of Android you've got and what type of phone you have. They all have some capability, but the level or the amount of capability you've got in terms of magnification varies a little bit with Android devices from model to model and brand to brand. But it is, again, quite a game changer that this stuff is built in. It wasn't too many years ago that we had to buy additional software to make an off-the-shelf mobile phone accessible. Now you can get a phone out of the box and pretty much set it up from scratch with the accessibility features turned on. For people like me who don't have sufficient vision to use magnification, or perhaps not magnification alone, both the Apple and Android platforms also have a built-in screen reader. So that will provide spoken feedback as to what's on the screen of the phone. As you move your finger around and touch different icons, it will speak those out. It will read your texts and those sorts of things to you, and really give you full access to the device using speech output. So if you've got an Apple device, an iPad or an iPhone, that feature is called VoiceOver. And again, you can turn it on under settings and accessibility. If you have an Android device, it'll either be called TalkBack or Voice Assist. If it's a Samsung device, it'll be called Voice Assist. If it's any other type of Android phone, it will be called TalkBack. And again, the capability varies a little bit. Obviously, the newer the version of Android that you have, the better the screen reader seems to work. There's also a bunch of third-party options that you can install for your phone. So I mentioned Ira before as being one example, but there's a whole range of different things. So for example, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, there is a free app developed by Microsoft called Seeing AI. And it allows you to do a whole range of things. You can have it take a picture of text and speak it out to you. And I do use that sometimes if I'm trying to read a menu or I'm trying to read cooking directions on a package or something like that. And it works quite well for that. But there's also a number of new features, including, again, the ability to do face recognition and even to describe a person. So if you take a picture of a person, it will say a 49-year-old man with grey hair looking happy. One thing that we've learned is that if you smile, it seems to take a few years off your estimated age. You can also have it describe a scene to you. So if I was to take a picture of Jim, it would say probably a man sitting at a desk using a laptop. It doesn't always get it right. I had a situation a while ago where I took a photo from a hotel balcony and it said probably a boat on the side of a building. No idea why it thought that, or why it thought that a boat might be stuck to the side of a building. We hadn't had any floods or anything at that point in time. But it does try its best to describe the picture, and more often than not, it gets reasonably accurate. There's also an application called Soundscape, which is a navigation app, and it'll sort of give you information about your surroundings. But you can also use it to put a beacon on something or a landmark. So, for example, as I said, I'm totally blind. I'm a Seeing Eye Dog user, and so is my wife. And we have a caravan. And when we go for a walk along the beach, it can sometimes be difficult to tell exactly where the beach exit is because there's no real landmarks. It's all just sand. But what I can do using Soundscape, I can put a landmark on that exit when I come onto the beach. And as I approach it, the application will beep if I'm heading in the right direction. And if I'm not, it'll make a clicking sound in either my left or right ear, depending on which way I need to turn in order to correct my course. So all of these tools are free, which is amazing really in terms of what that can do. On the Android side, there is an app called Envision AI, which does a similar thing to Seeing AI. And there's also a system called Synaptic, which is if you're the sort of person that struggles with a lot of the gestures on your touchscreen phone, Synaptic allows you to access a whole range of different sort of common tasks, contacts, sending text messages, those sorts of things, without having to learn a whole lot of gestures. You basically move your finger around the screen, it speaks whatever's under your finger, and then to access the feature you want, you just, once it says the thing that you're after, you lift your finger off. It also can magnify the screen as well as providing speech. So that's another alternative if you find the whole touchscreen thing a little bit uncomfortable to manage. There's also lots of audio games out there, and there's one recently that I got quite hooked on called Blind Drive, where you've got to drive a car through traffic blindfolded, and it's all done using sound cues. So you can play a game like that without any vision at all, without even looking at the screen. So there's a lot of audio games available as well for those that enjoy gaming in their spare time.
That's Synaptic on the screen there.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to do computer magnification, please, Jim?
No worries. There's a number of different ways that you can increase the magnification on your screen, and sometimes it's the really simple things that you need magnified. It's not necessarily the entire screen. It could be as simple as a larger cursor, because you lose that cursor all the time. Windows allows you to enlarge the size of the cursor, and change the color as well. So for some people, that's a game changer. For others who need magnification, then there are built-in magnification. Windows 10 now has really good built-in magnification. It's simple, that you can use. Macintosh, the Macs, will also has built-in magnification as well. And once again, you can have that reverse mode, so you can have a dark background with light writing. There are also dedicated magnifiers. So if you need a lot more complication, then and you can do that. You can have different colors. You can have the actual cursor size and color changed as well with the applications. There's two main ones called Zoom Text and Supernova. They can both even highlight the area as it's reading, so that you can follow the text and know exactly where you are on the screen at any given moment, which is kind of handy for if you've got a sighted colleague, either trying to help you out or just follow what you're doing, so they know exactly where you are. Of course, with that sort of magnification, if you're at 2 times or 3 times or 4 times magnification, you're not seeing the entire screen. You're only at 2 times magnification, you're only seeing a quarter of the screen. So moving your cursor around a lot sometimes for some people is a little awkward. So instead of having full screen magnification, you can have a floating magnifier on the screen. So basically it's just a square, or it could be a rectangle, and as wherever you move your cursor to, that's where it's reading. So for others, they find that much easier to use. You can also have other applications. There's a program called Guide Connect. Once again, for those people who find Windows or the Mac really complicated to use because there's so many icons around the place, Guide Connect pretty much takes over your computer, and it's an application all to itself. It has a number of really large icons, and as you move your cursor, you're using your arrow keys around, it'll say what it is that you're sitting on. So it could be emails, for instance. It could be typing up a letter. If you go into any of those, you can change the size of the text on the screen to really quite large. But when you print it out, it's printed out at normal size text. It also has dictation built in, so you can dictate what you want it to say as well. Has a number of different areas there, you know, from your normal calculators and utilities like that, that you could really be quite helpful. Internet, all the normal things that you would expect to have on your computer, but it simplifies the way that it's done and makes it really easy to use. I should point out with magnification, I mean, everyone's different. Many years ago, I used pure magnification all the time, and nothing but no speech. And I was, as you can imagine, in an organization like this, I was reading an enormous amount of emails every day and everything else that we need to do. I was going home with headaches all the time, just because of the eye strain that it all caused. And just for the heck of it, one time many moons ago, I decided to use pure speech for a week. No magnification at all, just using a screen reader to read everything to me. I didn't like it, I said first, because I was so used to looking at everything on the screen. But I realized by the end of the week that I was doing things much quicker than I was before. And I was going home without headaches. Theory says, and you've got to love theories, theory says that sighted people can read out loud at 100 words a minute, but you can comprehend, so you can actually listen to up to 400 words a minute. So once you got used to that speech, you tend to make it quicker and quicker until you can't make it any quicker. And you find that you know, most people around you can't understand what it's saying, but you can quite easily. So I was doing things much quicker. And these days I use a combination. Most of the time, I use the screen reader to read everything to me. But every now and then I want to see something, so I'll enlarge the screen and look at it. And that's, as I said, that's different for everybody. Screen readers. We also have screen reading software built into both the Mac called VoiceOver, and on Windows it's called Narrator. And Narrator's okay, it's not bad. It'll get you out of trouble, but there are better programs for Windows than Narrator. NVDA is a very commonly used screen reading program and is excellent. And its price is excellent too. It's free. So it's a bit hard to beat that one. It was written by two totally blind Australian guys, probably 12 years ago now, and it's updated 4 times a year. And it really is a useful program. It's one of those things where it'll read everything to you on the screen, all your menus and everything. But if you're a bit of a mouse user, most things that you point to, it'll read to you as well. So that's where you can sort of skip scan and make life much easier. There's also another program called JAWS, and it's commonly used, certainly in workplaces. And it's an expensive program, but it is also an excellent program and has made the difference to a lot of people at work and in their working lives. Without it, most people probably wouldn't be able to do their job. Damo, next screen. And Daisy.
Yeah, just before we move on to that, I'm actually a JAWS user myself. So I use that in pretty much everything I do for my work, but I'm also, one of my hobbies is community radio broadcasting. And so I use JAWS to control all of my my playlist. Basically everything I do for the radio show is done using a screen reader and speech and braille. So I can, read emails out that I get from listeners. I can respond to listener feedback. I can search for requests, all sorts of things. And the whole thing can be completely driven from a screen reader. So it enables me to do pretty much everything that I do on the computer, and I use VoiceOver on the phone. DAISY, or Digital Accessible Information System, is basically a way of navigating audio content. So DAISY material in DAISY format is available from a range of different services around the world, including the Vision Australia Library. I think we've got around about 90 or 100,000 titles available now, including things like the most of the major morning newspapers, so things like your Courier Mail, Sydney Morning Herald, Melbourne Age, as well as a number of regional ones, in my case, for example, the Rockhampton Morning Bulletin. And you can listen to those using either an app on your phone or a dedicated player, such as an Envoy Connect or a Victor Reader. And the thing about the DAISY content is that it allows you to move easily, chapter by chapter, heading by heading. So if you're reading a newspaper, you can skip through and look at the headlines in much the same way you would in print. And then when you find a headline where you want to read more, you can just read that article. So it's a lot, makes it easy to quickly search and navigate through audio content. And as Jim was saying before, you can also adjust the playback speed and that sort of thing. And it's often a good way to get started if you're sort of in that transitional phase where you're starting to really find it uncomfortable to read print even with a magnifier. Starting to sort of consume your daily news or some audio books and that sort of thing is a good way to sort of start teaching your brain to process things in an auditory way, because generally your brain gets most of its information visually. And part of that sort of transition, I guess, to vision loss is starting to use other senses, and audio is a big one in terms of getting access to information. So you start to teach your brain to process more information in an auditory way. And if you can do that by reading your favorite book or your favorite magazine, it becomes an enjoyable process rather than something of a chore, which any transition or change can be. So it's a good way to sort of start making that adjustment, is to start to access audio content. And the Vision Australia library is free to all Vision Australia clients. As I've mentioned at the start of this presentation, in the time we have, we're really kind of only able to scratch the surface and tell you broadly about the different types of technology. But within that, there's a whole range of different options. Some of them, as I said, are free, but some of them there is a cost to getting them. So it's worth spending a couple of minutes just to talk through the different funding options that are available to help you access some of this technology. So if you're currently employed, there is a funding scheme called Job Access, which is designed to help fund what we call workplace modifications. So in other words, what it does is it tries to level the playing field so that an employer who's looking at hiring someone with a vision impairment isn't put off by thinking, oh, gee, I'm going to have to buy a whole lot of expensive equipment so that I can give you the job, because that's what the scheme covers. So if you needed a magnifier because you're dealing with hard copy print in your job, or you're having difficulty with the computer access and you need a screen reader or some magnification software, or perhaps dual monitors or monitor arms, all of those sorts of things can be funded through Job Access if you're employed for, I think it's more than 8 hours a week. If that's not you, some of you or a lot of you have probably heard of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So if you're under 65, you can access the NDIS, and that there is provision for funding assistive technology through the NDIS. It's something that you have to have added to your plan. So it's worth sort of flagging that when you do a plan review. But essentially, from there, what we can do a technology assessment for you, work out what technology will suit your needs, and then develop a report to submit to the NDIS. If you're not sure how to go about that, our Service Connect team can sort of guide you through that process of how to get your plan set up and those sorts of things. I should point out that most of these funding schemes won't fund things like phones or laptops or iPads or those sorts of things. Rightly or wrongly, and I'm not going to go into that, their view is that these devices are everyday devices that most households have, and they cite the Australian Bureau of Statistics data that says 86% of households have a computer or a smartphone or a tablet that they can access. So they'll fund additional software that you might need, such as magnification software. They'll fund, specialized equipment such as Braille devices, those sorts of things, but they won't fund the laptop or tablet or phone itself. And that's true of pretty much all of the funding schemes have some limitations around that. My Aged Care or MAC can in some situations fund technology equipment, as can Department of Veterans Affairs or DVA, depending on if you're eligible for that service, and there's different levels of funding available. But again, we can provide more information on that if need be. And again, there are some limitations around what they will and won't fund, particularly around everyday items. So if we're looking to access equipment through any of these funding bodies, we would do what is called a assistive technology assessment. And it sounds like a scary thing, but it really isn't. What we aim to do is to, I guess, understand what it is that you're wanting to be able to do, or what it is that you're finding challenging. we would give you an opportunity to trial a range of different equipment options to work out what's actually going to suit you. As Jim said before, everyone is different. There is no one size fits all solution where we would say, right, you've got retinitis pigmentosa, here's the device for you. It doesn't work that way. Everyone's different, everyone's needs are different, and everyone's sort of vision condition affects them in different ways. So what we try to do through this process is to determine what particular options are going to meet your specific needs. In the case of the NDIS, we have to provide evidence and sort of explain what we've tried and what we've considered and those sorts of things as part of the assessment report. So once we've kind of explored that and identified, you know, what options would suit you and you're happy with that, then we would go in and produce an assessment report that sort of outlines our the recommended equipment, or the equipment that has been identified as being suitable. And then it's up to the funding body to determine whether they will fund that. So the assessment process is not scary at all. And it's actually a good idea, because sometimes, you know, you might have sort of seen a piece of equipment on TV and you think, oh, that'll be perfect for me. But once you've actually got it in front of you, you might find that it actually doesn't do all of the things that you want it to do. You know, and we would sort of say to you, for example, if we were trialing, you know, a wearable device, we might say, okay, bring in the sorts of documents you might want to read, and we'll see how it goes. And you might find that one device doesn't read your, you know, document type, your mail or your the magazines you want to read as accurately as another. So it's a good opportunity to sort of put equipment through its paces and really get to the bottom of what is actually going to work best for you. If you want more information in terms of either the process, what's fundable and what's not, or just what technology is out there, if there's something that we've talked about today that has captured your interest, you're more than welcome to contact Vision Australia. We have a free AT help desk service that is available to all Vision Australia clients. So you do have to register as a client to access it. But if you're wanting to know, for example, what was that thing that Jim was talking about that's built in that I can magnify my screen, you can call our main Vision Australia number, 1300 Vision, or 1300 847 466, I think that's right. And ask for the AT help desk, and we'd be happy to sort of talk you through or provide advice on phones or any of those sorts of things. If you want to know more about the funding options and those sorts of things, that phone number again, our National Contact Centre would be able to help you. So you can call 1300 847 466, or you can pop over to www.visionaustralia.org. And we'd be able to sort of guide you through the process and the next steps, and you know, talk you through what you need to do to access the various funding streams and those sorts of things. So by all means, feel free to get in touch with us if there's anything that we can do to assist. If you if you have any questions, obviously there is time at the end, and we're almost finished. So feel free to pop something into the chat window or raise your hand if you would like to ask a question following this. I would second Jim's comment earlier, and people do think it's odd, you know, when I say, you know, historically speaking, there's never been a better time to be blind. It seems like an odd thing to say, but the reality is that there is, you know, we have access to more information than we've ever had before. There's a greater range of options than we've ever had before, and it really can be quite life-changing. I certainly couldn't have done many of the things that I've done, either in terms of hobbies and leisure, but also in terms of career and, you know, employment and education, without the technology that I've had access to. And it is improving all the time. And, you know, phone manufacturers, computer manufacturers are starting to build some of this stuff in. So it does make it a lot more within reach for a lot of people. So I hope that there's been something useful in this for you. As I said, some of it you're probably familiar with, some of it you may not have been. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and thank you for the opportunity for Jim and I to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Damian and Jim. That's fantastic. So we'll just let ourselves sort of get settled down, and perhaps we'll both all appear now on the screen. And then it'll be over to you guys to see what you would like to ask us. So I'll just go over the instructions so that you can actually ask a question. So what we need you to do is raise your hand. And to do that, you can select the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen, or you can use Alt-Y on the keyboard. If you're on the phone, you can do it by pressing *9. And then if I need you to unmute your microphone, this will be just for the phone call people, you'll have to press *6. So it's really over to you now, everybody. And I see that we've got Mr. Leighton Boyd, the chairman of Retina Australia, has his hand raised, so we'll let him talk. You're good to go, Leighton.
Thank you. Thank you, Damian and Jim. It's been a long time, Jim, since we've had a chat.
Certainly.
A very long time. But thank you, guys. I think it's been certainly an excellent presentation. As you people would no doubt be aware, we've got a lot of members right across Australia, and we do have considerable member base in Western Australia and in South Australia. Now, as I understand it, do you have connections over there, or our people that are living in those two particular states, how can they avail themselves of any of your services at Vision Australia?
So we do have an office in Perth, so that would be probably your nearest point of contact if you're in Western Australia, and we do have assistive technology specialists based out of that office. The help desk is a national service, so if you're registered as a client, or you want to become a client so you can access that service, you can do that by phone or email, regardless of where in the country you are. We don't provide face-to-face services at this point into South Australia. However, since the challenges, if you like, brought about by COVID, we are able to offer services via telehealth. So we can use a medium like this to talk you through options, or provide advice, or even facilitate assessments and things like that if need be. So certainly, people are more than welcome to contact us either through the website or by calling our 1300 Vision number. And if you're somewhere that we don't have a physical presence, then we can certainly try and assist as much as we can using video conferencing, phone, all of those sorts of things.
Thank you. Just to follow up, what sort of question? You mentioned NDIS and purchase of equipment and doing the technology assessments and things like that.
Yep.
So a number of people certainly have mentioned to me, and I'm probably in this category myself, I have a piece of equipment which I got through NDIS, and certainly, I suppose once that gets delivered to my house, it's all very well, except, how does one learn how to use it? I suppose, is it through that phone connection, or in a non-COVID time, would someone come to your residence?
It depends on a few different factors. Depends partly what the piece of equipment is, where you are, and that sort of thing. So we can do quite a bit over the phone, and our AT help desk staff are all blind low vision themselves, and they are used to providing support remotely. However, if it was something that did require quite a bit of training, sometimes as part of the assessment, we would recommend that, and certainly we can, if needed, and if it's sort of been included in the assessment, or you request it next time you do a plan review. Normally we would do it as part of the assessment. We could actually send someone out to deliver, a few hours of training, particularly software, because that is something that sometimes, someone might need 8 or 10 or 12 hours of training. So generally, if we can, we would do that. We'd send someone from your nearest regional Vision Australia office. But if not, again, there's a lot that we can do using telehealth. So that's using video conferencing and phone and those sorts of things. So those options do exist. And normally when we would do a technology assessment for something for the NDIS, if there's a training requirement, then we would sort of request that the funding be included for that as well, particularly if it's a significant amount of training. If it's, as I said, 8, 10, 12 hours, we would normally request that the agency fund that along with the equipment, so that to make sure that you can actually get the most out of it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leighton. Well, I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but I have a question. One of the things I wanted to ask was if I didn't have a smartphone at all, and I'd never used any of this technology before, and I was thinking of starting using it, do you have an opinion about which operating system is better? Is it better to go with Apple or Android?
I always sort of say that's a little bit like a Ford or Holden question.
Yes, I understand.
But look, I mean, it sort of depends on a number of things. If you're a screen reader user, I would generally say to you that the VoiceOver screen reader does give you a more comprehensive experience than TalkBack on Android. So if you think you may need the phone to speak to you, then VoiceOver probably gives you a better experience. And it also, a lot more of the third-party apps that you can buy from the Apple App Store will work with VoiceOver than is the case with Android and TalkBack. Having said that, if people are more familiar with Android already and they've got some level of comfort with that, then I wouldn't necessarily advise changing. It also depends to some extent on on budget, and because the Apple equipment is not the cheapest out there, but there are definitely some advantages to it in terms of the range of accessible apps and the the consistency and how well the screen reader and to some extent the magnifier works. So overall, I think there are advantages to Apple, but that said, I've used Android devices and quite like them. So I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool Apple fan necessarily, but I think for many of our clients there are some advantages with the Apple platform. Jim, do you have a view on that?
I was also going to say it really depends on your needs. If all that you're looking for is a basic phone that will speak to you, read out your contacts, read out your text messages, allow you to send text messages, then there are really basic good phones. The Olitech phone, for instance, is a flip phone. So, you get a call, you open it, you want to hang up, you close it. It's really simple for a lot of people. So for someone who wants that basic phone, that's it's probably as good as you need. When it comes to the more complicated side, which is better, iPhone or Android, that is so much of a personal thing. I used to use an Android phone when the screens were larger, and for about 3 years. And when Apple finally decided to have larger screens, I switched back to Apple, and I enjoyed the experience a lot more. I just found that, being able to, the way that I use a phone, I don't always have the speech on, but I turn it on and off as I need it. And it's simple to use, and it just does everything the way that I want it to do. And the apps, I think there's more apps that I use on an iPhone than there is on an Android phone. And I prefer the actual sound of the voice, the actual synthesizer that it uses, the iPhone uses. So for me, it's an iPhone, but not by a long shot, like Damian said. It's a few years ago, and literally just a few years ago, I would have said, don't touch an Android phone. These days, they've caught up a long way, and they're very usable. I just prefer an iPhone.
Yeah, I'm amused by the Holden and Ford thing. I think that's it's always like that, isn't it? But I just wondered whether one was a long way ahead, but it sounds like
no,
there's a lot of similarity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I can't see anybody else with a question. You've obviously answered everyone's questions, or else they're absolutely just bamboozled. But I think it's been fantastic. But I did want to ask one thing. The IRA, it's not an app, is it? It's a.
It is an app, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an app that's available on Android or Apple, and it is a subscription-based service. So
that was my question.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to know what sort of cost that, because it sounds like a fantastic thing.
It's sort of based on you can purchase sort of, I guess, depending on how many minutes a month you want to use the service.
Right.
So plans sort of start at about $40 and then work up to sort of $150, depending on how much time you want to purchase. But they do have, you can access, you can download the app for free and use the service for sort of 5 minutes at a time. So if you wanted to try it, you can download the IRA app, AIRA, and if you just want to know, can you tell me whether what the use by date is on this bottle of milk? Something that'll take less than 5 minutes. You can access the service, once or twice a day for less than 5 minutes for free. So that there is the opportunity to sort of trial it out, and they do have a number of sort of free offers as well. So, for example, if you're accessing the service to do something with employment, like check the formatting of your resume or something like that, then I think you can get a sort of 30 minutes of assistance for free for employment related tasks. Also, they're gradually trying to roll out what they call free access locations. So organizations or venues can purchase minutes so that anyone in that venue, so for example, a football stadium or a railway station or an airport, can access the service for free while they're at that location. So we're hoping that over time that the list of locations will expand. There aren't many in Australia yet, but we're hoping that over time that will expand.
It certainly sounds like a fantastic thing. Well, I think that at this stage, nobody else has any questions. Does anybody want to ask anything before we say goodbye? This is your last opportunity to raise your hand.
I think what Damian said before, we haven't even touched on a lot of things today because we just didn't have the time. Things like smart TVs and smart home devices. And if anyone wants to know about that and they're a client, certainly ring our help desk, and they're more than helpful with all that sort of jazz. And
certainly, we'd be very interested in everybody's feedback about the information that we've had today. And if you found it useful, we may be able to invite these guys back another time to talk about some of the other things that they can do. So I guess it really just remains for me to say thank you very much to you both for your time you've given us and for this fantastic amount of information. It's been really useful, and I think that certainly I know there are a number of people who are listening today who would describe themselves as very poor in the technology department, and so it's a great opportunity to hear from you about some of the things that are available, and hopefully they'll be in touch with you to get some more information. So I just want to say thank you to all our attendees as well today. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Our next webinar is on Thursday, the 27th of May at 2 p.m. Melbourne time. And this will be an opportunity to hear from two of our currently funded researchers. So that will be interesting to hear from them. And there'll be some information going out to people. We'll send an email to our email subscribers, and there'll be a letter to our print subscribers. When you leave the screen after this event, you'll have an opportunity to complete a survey about the event. And we would love it if you could take the time to do that for us, just so that you can give us some feedback and any ideas about how we can improve this. You don't have to do it right now, because we are making a recording of this webinar, and we'll be sending out a link to that the next day or so. And I'll put a link to the survey there as well, so you can fill that in at that time as well. So thank you very much for joining us, and that's the end of the webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.